All right, also our next section of notes on World War II is going to be on victory in Japan. So as far as the fighting in Japan is concerned, in one of our previous sections of notes, we talked a little bit about some of the different battles that were happening in the Pacific. I mentioned that as we were working our way closer and closer to Japan, we had the battles of Okinawa and Iwo Jima. Now, these battles were going to be especially deadly for the United States. And as the battles are continuing to happen, it becomes increasingly more prevalent that the Japanese are not going to win this war, especially once the Germans have surrendered. It's clear the Japanese are not going to win this war, but they are willing to do whatever is necessary to at least not surrender, which resulted in extremely high death tolls for the Japanese and for the U.S. And the U.S. government is really wanting to try to prevent as many U.S. deaths as they can. So as far as the fighting is concerned, it's getting more and more deadly, and the U.S. wants to try to end this as quickly as possible with the least number of American deaths as they can. Now, what we see happening during the war is that we had something called the Manhattan Project that had already been going on for a while. And when the war began in 1939, the U.S. as well as the British and Canada began working on this top secret project that they called the Manhattan Project. Now, as they were developing this project, they realized and they kind of had a fear that Nazi Germany might try to develop the same kind of technology, which this was the development of a nuclear bomb. So really it became this test of trying to create this technology before the Germans could do it themselves. Now the project itself officially began in 1942. After the U.S. had entered into the war, because now that we're involved in the war, we definitely want to try to have this technology created. And then it's not until 1945 that we actually have the first successful detonation of an atomic bomb taking place. So this is already after the Germans had surrendered, but we're still fighting the war against Japan at this point. Now, as far as the decision to use the atomic bomb goes, it will be up to President Truman, which we'll talk more about him in one of our later sections of notes. But as far as using the atomic bomb goes, after it is successfully detonated, Truman was actually at a peace conference in Europe, and basically he gets word that they've successfully detonated an atomic bomb, and he realizes that if they do not use this technology, that the war is going to continue to go on, which will mean a greater loss of American lives. So he decides, we're going to use this bomb and we're going to use it until Japan unconditionally surrenders. So on August 6th of 1945, the U.S. is going to drop the first atomic bomb on another country in the city of Hiroshima in Japan. Now, with the dropping of this bomb, pretty much after this happens, a lot of communication in Japan will be cut off. People pretty much just think Hiroshima has completely been wiped off the map. They have no idea what exactly has happened there. Now, eventually, the Japanese do think that this isn't something the U.S. can really sustain. They think, if anything, they maybe have one or two more of these bombs. They definitely can't continue to do this, so they do not initially surrender. Then a few days later, the U.S. will drop its second atomic bomb on the city of Nagasaki. After the dropping of this bomb, Japan will unconditionally surrender, which, if you are curious about the death tolls and exactly how big nuclear bombs are, if you look up nuke map on Google, it'll take you to a site. It's the first site that pops up, and you can actually move around on a map, kind of like Google Maps, and you can select different nuclear warheads, and it'll show you exactly how many deaths, exactly what different bombs, the different rings that would be put out, whether it was a fireball blast or an air blast or nuclear radiation, all of those sorts of things you can see on there as well, which if we were in class, I would show you all that, but we're not, so I'm just going to tell you about it. Now, if we look at the actual bombs themselves and what exactly happened, so you can see the image here on the left. This is what the city of Hiroshima looked like before the bomb was dropped and then after the bomb was dropped. So pretty much every single standing structure is completely wiped out. And then over here, that's the mushroom cloud, what it looked like from the plane as it was flying away from the bombing of the city. Now, Truman, after the first bombing, is going to say, if they do not now accept our terms, they may expect a rain of ruin from the air, the like of which has never been seen on this earth. And a lot of people think maybe later on in life, Truman questioned if he had really made the right decision. He himself claimed, even after he had left the presidency, that he would make that same decision 10 out of 10 times if he had to. And he felt like he truly made the right decision, even though hundreds of thousands of people were killed. He felt like that was the decision that had to be made to bring the war to an end, which ultimately this does bring the war to an end. And on August 15th, 1945, Japan officially surrenders. And this is officially the end of the Second World War. So this day becomes known as VJ Day, or Victory in Japan Day. It's estimated that around 20 million military deaths occurred in this war and around 40 million civilian deaths occurred as well. But there are around 15 million soldiers that were left severely wounded from World War II. So as far as the grand schemes of wars go, and especially the ones that we've learned about so far, on a global scale, this war was significantly larger than World War I was, and ultimately it does end with a significant number more of civilian deaths than military deaths.